Coach, I got the votes. I can play.
Son, I am so proud of you. You're a Pro Bowl alternate.
So, yeah, the Pro Bowl selection came out, and it was highly criticized. So I figured, hey, I'll give my own picks for the Pro Bowl, and so you can criticize my picks instead of the actual picks. Because let's be honest, no list is going to be perfect. Everyone wants their favorite players to be on there. But I figured I could give my own spin on it, say who I would think, and then you can tell me why you disagree with me in the comments below. So let's start off with the quarterbacks in the AFC. I know people are already going to disagree about one in particular because I have Mahomes, Tannehill, and Watson. I do not have Josh Allen here. I think Ryan Tannehill is deserving of this spot, even though what was actually selected was Mahomes, Allen, and Watson. I really like Tannehill. I think he's done a great job, and he's had an incredible season. I know that it helps him to be in a pretty good system, but Josh Allen, he has good talent around him as well. And I think Tannehill has still done more, even though he's done more with more. I mean, 31 touchdowns to 5 interceptions is just absolutely absurd. He's worthy of it, in my opinion. Allen does have 9 picks. He has had a couple of off days. So, again, it's really tough to be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. I have these 3. I think Watson's also more deserving. But really, in my opinion, there's just 4 Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks, and someone has to get left off. Now, for the running backs in the AFC, I'm going to just do the whole AFC, then I'll do the whole NFC. So, for the running backs for the AFC, I have Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and James Robinson. To me, this is pretty obvious. James Robinson isn't actually on there. Instead, it's Josh Jacobs. Jacobs has had a fine year. I just think Robinson has been better. And again, he's sort of not had much talent around him. Still got more total rushing yards. I think he's not necessarily the better player, but he's had the better season. And that's what we're grading with the Pro Bowl. And he's still a really good player. Now for the wide receivers, I actually have very similar to what they had. The only difference is I have a different 4th wide receiver. Instead of A.J. Brown, I have a different Tennessee Titan, Corey Davis. He has more receiving yards. I know a lot of that has been because A.J. Brown, he's getting double teamed more. He's, the people are paying a little bit more attention to him. But I think Davis has had the overall more value this season. And that's what I grade, is how much value did you bring to your team in 2020? I think Davis was a little bit better this season, so I'm going to put him here instead of A.J. Brown. Keenan Allen, Diggs, and Tyreek Hill, I think, are all very deserving. If you have Brown there instead of Davis, that's fine too. I think that, they were pretty good on this one. I say wide receivers, good job, Pro Bowl voters. Tight ends, I also agree. They did a good job. Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, hard to really argue against those 2 guys. Both are incredible. It's probably the 2 best receiving tight ends in football right now, although Hawkinson's pretty good too. Very much worthy of a Pro Bowl nod. For fullbacks, I have Las Vegas Raiders fullback Alec Ingold. I think he's had a really good season. I think he's a really good player. To me, he is worthy of the 1 fullback nod that gets selected for the AFC. For offensive tackles, I actually had a really hard time finding who I thought deserved a 3rd tackle. So if you have someone that you think should be there instead, I probably won't disagree. But what I went with was Laramie Tunsil, Orlando Brown Jr., and then Garrett Bowles, who for Denver has actually had a really good season. He still needs to get those penalties down, but I think he's done well. I would give him the nod here. But if you disagree, that's fine. I think that's totally fair. But at the same, and I also think that, Denver's line has been inconsistent at times. So he's probably not getting the team's best matchups. So maybe that helps him. So I think there's 2 clear guys that deserve a Pro Bowl for me, in Brown and Tunsil. And then one that, I think has still had a good season. I think he's worthy of it. But if you think someone else is worthy, I think that's fair as well. For guards, I have 2 Cleveland Browns and Quentin Nelson. It's really hard to argue against these 3 guys, Joel Benito, Quentin Nelson, and Wyatt Teller. I mean, I'm surprised Wyatt Teller did not get a nomination for the Pro Bowl, but at the same time, I do kind of get it because, no one pays attention to offensive linemen, which is frustrating. But I think these 3 guys are fantastic. I think they're all deserving of it. For centers, I got Rodney Hudson and Ryan Kelly. I can't believe Rodney Hudson was left off. He totally deserves a nomination, I think. I mean, I think that this maybe hasn't been his best season, but it's still been really good. And the idea that Marquise Pouncey is getting a nod over Rodney Hudson, that's ridiculous. I mean, with all due respect, Rodney Hudson's he's a better player. Rodney Hudson's one of the best centers of all time. He's fantastic. He deserves it, I think. Okay, now for defense, I'm going to start off with edge rushers. And what I'm doing is, because, the NFL is weird and they don't know what they're doing. What they do is they just have defensive ends and outside linebackers, which usually results in basically 6 edge rushers getting selected and only 2 middle linebackers, so only 2 linebackers total getting selected. I've evened it out a little bit more. I have 4 linebackers and 4 edge rushers. It's just doing it that way. So that would be for linebackers, it's outside linebackers in a 3-4, in a 4-3. They count as just linebackers in my rankings. So yeah, anyways, who I have for the edge, I have TJ Watt, Joey Bosa, Emmanuel Ogba. I'm not quite sure how to say it. Listen, it's his first, what I think should be his first Pro Bowl nomination. Don't quite have it down just yet. And then Myles Garrett. Those are my 4. Again, 3 of these guys ended up as Pro Bowlers. There's 6 selections, so makes some sense. For the guys who ended up not getting selected, Frank Clark, he's had he's a good career. I don't think he's quite deserved it this year. Same thing with Judon. And Bradley Chubb, I like. He was my 5th guy on the list, but I just thought Ogba deserved it a little bit more, so I'm giving him some love here. Those are my 4 for edge rushers. For defensive tackles, so Chris Jones, I still have. He made it. I'm actually replacing 2. I have DeForest Buckner. I think it's insane he didn't make it. I'm also going to put on Stephon Tuitt simply because, Cameron Hayward's been great too for Pittsburgh. He was my 4th guy, so giving him an honorable mention. But Tuitt's managed to get 9 sacks. I think that's incredible. So I think that he deserves the nod here at defensive tackle. And also, I should note, with the way I'm doing it, defensive tackle, that's also, if you're a nose tackle, you get thrown in there, which makes sense. That's how the regular Pro Bowl voting works. So yeah. Those are my 3 guys. For linebackers, I do have the 2 that were listed, which makes sense, again, because there's only 2 linebackers the way the Pro Bowl voting does. I'm also going to include Myles Jack and Zach Cunningham. To be honest, maybe a bit of a weak field in the AFC unless I just missed somebody, which, again, very possible. I tried to do as much research as possible, but it's very possible I did miss somebody. So if I did, let me know. I'll let you know if I just forgot about them. But yeah, I thought that these 4 very deserving. Again, Myles Jack and Zach Cunningham, not necessarily getting a lot of attention because of the teams they play for. But they had good seasons. 4 cornerbacks now. Xavier Howard, again, with all the interceptions he's had and way he's been a shutdown corner, especially in that defense where he often has to go up one-on-one a ton. I think he deserves a lot of credit. I also have J.C. Jackson. Now, people might disagree with this. He didn't get selected to the actual Pro Bowl. I think probably part of the reason why is he's not even the best corner on his team, but that's because Gilmore, he's been hurt a lot, so that's why I don't have him on here. He doesn't have the snaps, quite frankly, in my opinion, to earn the nod. Unfortunate, but that it is kind of how the way it works. And I think when J.C. Jackson has had to be a number 1, he stepped up, and he has a ton of picks as well. And Marlon Humphrey for Baltimore, again, they're all the same system. I didn't do that intentionally, but they all play a very similar system. And I do think that factors in as well, is the fact that they're asked to do a lot and they back that up. For safeties, I am not going to put Justin Simmons or or Minka Fitzpatrick on the list. I like both of them a lot, especially I thought Simmons was, he was my 4th guy. I really thought about him. But instead, it'll be Jesse Bates, who plays for Cincinnati, Marcus May, who's, been one of the few bright spots for the Jets, and then Tyrann Mathieu. I think these guys are, they're all incredible. Again, Bates and May don't necessarily get the credit because of the team they play for, but at the same time, I think they deserve some love, so I'm going to give them the nod. But again, the 2 guys who I'm leaving out that originally got it, Fitzpatrick and Simmons, I think they're both really deserving too. So in my opinion, some positions it feels like there's not a ton of deserving Pro Bowlers. In this situation, I feel like there's 5 deserving Pro Bowlers, and you kind of have to take your pick. And maybe even more. It was just a loaded position group this year. For kickers, I have Jason Sanders. They have Justin Tucker. Obviously, can't go wrong there. I'm going to give it to Sanders. For one thing, he's 30 for 32, so only 2 missed field goals. Both of them were over 40 yards. And for Justin Tucker, I know a couple of his misses have been blocks this year, but there still is more misses. And blocks are sometimes on the kicker as well. Sometimes you got to get the ball up. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not a kicking expert. But for me, kickers, I just give it to who has the better numbers because I'm not a kicking expert. I'm not a kicking analyst. Sanders has the best numbers, in my opinion, in the AFC, so I'm giving the nod to him. All right, NFC time. I am going to start off with the quarterbacks, of course. Let's go Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and I'm going to give it to Kyler Murray as my 3rd choice. You could give it to Tom Brady. They have the same amount of interceptions. Brady has more passing touchdowns, but Murray has more total touchdowns, and I do think that factors in. And plus, I think Murray is just playing with less talent around him. I think the Cardinals' offensive line has not been great this year. And outside of DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, the receiving core is fine. But obviously Tampa Bay's is insane. So I am going to give it to Murray here as the third Pro Bowler. For halfbacks, I have Dalvin Cook, Aaron Jones, and then my third pick was Alvin Kamara. There's a couple other guys I thought about, but I just feel like what Kamara has done, not just in the running game, but also in the passing game. I almost put David Montgomery in the spot, but it's just what these three guys can do. I just feel like they're all deserving of it. So again, there's a couple more that I really wanted to put in there. I just feel like these are the three best. For the wide receivers, the first three are all the same as what actually got selected. Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, we're all on the same page. I'm going to select Calvin Ridley instead of Justin Jefferson. Jefferson's been great, but I do feel like, again, I don't want to criticize him too much because he has had a great season. I do feel like some of his yards have been from the system. I think that Calvin Ridley's kind of quote unquote earned his yards more. And if that makes sense, I feel like he's had to run more difficult routes because of the offense, and he's been able to do that. He's been a wide receiver one more than I've seen from Justin Jefferson this season. So I think that factors in, and I think he, neither offense is fantastic, but I just think that the offense is kind of built around a receiver like Jefferson more, whereas Ridley sort of had to, he had to go up against man coverage and just beat guys more than I saw from Jefferson. They're both incredible. Again, both plenty worthy. I just thought Ridley was a little bit better, so I'm going to put him in there. For tight ends, yeah, I mean, Hawkinson's a lock. The number two, everyone was freaking out about the fact that Robert Tonyan didn't get selected. I thought he was deserving of it. It seemed like people were really less freaking out over the fact that Robert Tonyan didn't get selected and more about the Evan Ingram did. People didn't love that. I didn't think it was that outrageous, if I'm being honest. Ingram was second in the NFC in receiving yards, so I see the logic behind it, and I do think his blocking has gotten better this year. He still drops too many passes, but I think Tunyan's more deserving. He has 10 touchdowns. That's incredible. So he's deserving. But Ingram, I thought, had a good season. I don't get why he's getting all this hate. Very bizarre to me. And for fullbacks, got to give it to Kyle Juszczyk. He's one of those guys where he can do it all. He's a fullback, but he adds so much more to that offense. And they're one of the few offenses that still uses a fullback in a traditional way. So, yeah, he's going to be my selection for the NFC. Okay, offensive tackles. This is a stacked tackle class. I actually think they got it right. I think Bakhtiari, Trent Williams, and Terron Armstead, I think those are the three I would have selected. There's a couple others. I thought Ryan Ramczyk, it sucks to leave him off this list. I mean, that just doesn't feel right. But at the same time, are you really going to replace David Bakhtiari or Trent Williams or his teammate Terron Armstead to do it? I just don't know if you can. You can maybe make the argument him over Armstead, but it's just tough. The tackles in the NFC, there's a lot of high-end talent there. For guards, it comes back down to earth a little bit. I have Brandon Sheriff, and also I have Elton Jenkins. So we're both on the same page with what actually gets selected in those two. I'm going to put Chris Lindstrom for Atlanta. He's playing in his second year. He was a first-round pick, got hurt his first year. He's had a good season for Atlanta. He's been one of the bright spots for that offensive line. So I like what I've seen from him a lot. I'm going to give him the nod here, over it's Andres Pete, that a Saints player that I'm selecting. So I'm sure Falcons fans will be happy to see me put a Falcon in and take a Saint out, but I just thought he's had the better season. For centers, again, I think they got it right. Jason Kelce, it's probably hasn't been his best season, but he's still been really good. And Frank Ragnow, again, he played with a fractured throat in a game. Just ridiculous. Fantastic. He deserves the nod as well. Absolutely. I think they got this one right in the NFC. For the edge rushers, I have Trey Hendrickson. Again, can't believe he didn't make the list with his numbers. He's been incredible. I have Zadarius Smith. He did make it. Same thing with Jason Pierre-Paul. And then I also have Leonard Williams on here. I think that those are, in my opinion, the four best edge guys. So I think that they deserve to be put on here. I thought they've all had really good seasons. And to me, I do take sacks into a pretty big consideration. I'm probably a bigger fan of sacks than most people are. And a big reason why I'm a big fan of sacks is because that's what the actual value of the season is. I think some people don't like it because they feel like, well, how often can you replace that? Can you replicate that season after season? For example, Shaq Barrett had 19 and a half sacks last year. We kind of knew he wasn't going to do that this year. But at the same time, I don't really care about that. I care about what value did you bring this season. So that's part of my reasoning for edge rushers. That's why I have guys like Cameron Jordan is great. I don't think this has been his best year. Brandon Graham started off really strong, but it's kind of cooled down a bit. These are guys who got selected that I don't have on my list. Same thing with Chase Young. I love his potential. I just don't think he's done it yet this year. I think he'll probably earn some Pro Bowls in the future. I do think it's partially name recognition that got him in this year. That's just my opinion. I thought about Khalil Mack as well, but he was my 5th guy that I left off the list. So those are my 4 in the NFC. Defensive tackles, you'd have to be insane to not put Aaron Donald on this list, even though he plays a little bit of edge, but he's mostly a defensive tackle and incredible at it. And then I have a couple of NFC South rivals. I have Grady Jarrett, and how about David Onyemata? I feel like he hasn't gotten much love. He wasn't on the list, and no one really is complained about it, but I feel like he's totally deserving. He's someone who I have on this list. I think he's been great for the Saints. For linebackers, we have an absolutely stacked group. It sucks to have to narrow it down to 4, quite frankly, because I thought 7 guys that I'm like, man, I wish I could put them on the list. I'm going with Bobby Wagner, Roquan Smith, Fred Warner, and Levante David. Those are the 4 that I have. Eric Kendricks is someone you could put on the list. Demario Davis and Deion Jones, again, a Saint and a Falcon. I feel like those are 2 guys that are absolutely deserving. It sucks to not put Deion Jones on the list. If you ask me in a vacuum, is he a Pro Bowler? The answer is no question, but I just can't justify putting him above these 4 who have all been great this season. You could argue Levante David. Maybe I'm a homer being a Bucs fan picking him, but I feel like he's earned it. People wanted Devin White as well. People are talking about him as a snub. I just don't see it, quite frankly. Yes, his numbers are good, but he has not been great in coverage all season. That's not really something people pay attention to with linebackers, but I do think that his coverage has not been good at all, and I couldn't justify putting him in a stacked field. So that's why I have those 4 there. Again, there's a lot of guys you could pick and be right because there's so many deserving guys in the NFC. For cornerbacks, again, good category. There's a lot of guys here. I'm going to go with Jalen Ramsey. I think he's been great for the Rams. They paid a heavy price and he's lived up to it. So you don't always see that, but Rams got to be wiping some sweat off their eyebrows about that one. You have Jaire Alexander, who, he's been great for Packers, having consistently better and better seasons. I think this is his best. He's here. And then James Bradbury for the Giants. He was the free agent acquisition. He's been great. In my opinion, he's a top 3 corner, and so he's earned this honor, in my opinion. For safeties, I am going Budda Baker, Jamal Adams. Those 2 are also, players that made it. I'm actually not going to go Quandre Diggs, though, who's another Seahawk. So I'm going to go Harrison Smith for Minnesota. I think that he hasn't necessarily looked as good this year because of who's around him. But I think if you just watch him, you'd realize that he's still playing at a high level. I think he's earned it. Again, there's a few guys here in the safeties. And so, that's the kind of thing where I think that's why some people get frustrated when they see these Pro Bowls lists that are just awful, because there's so many guys you could choose from. But sometimes there's these decisions that get made and you're just wondering, how in the world does that get made? So I'm sure you guys will disagree in some areas of me, because of course you would. We value different things and we have different perspectives on what it is. My goal in making this list is to just have you say at the end of it, well, I can see why you thought that. So hopefully I did that. And yeah, I think Harrison Smith, again, what his IQ is off the charts. Really good player, really smart player. And all 3 of these guys have had great seasons, especially Baker and Adams, though. They've been incredible. And for kicker, how about Younghoe Koo? He deserves it, and you can't tell me he doesn't, quite frankly. I think he's had a tremendous season. I believe he's 35 for 36, which is just ridiculous. He's also kicked a onside kick recovery. So insane. I mean, he's been one of the best kickers. He's probably going to be an all-pro in the NFC because, again, there's only one kicker, and he made the Pro Bowl. I think he should be an all-pro unless we'll see how these next 2 games go. But yeah, that's who I have for a kicker. He's been great. So yeah, that's my list. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you would do differently. Tell me what you would do differently and why, how you feel that way. I'll maybe respond to some comments and explain my reasoning a bit more if I feel like I've been unclear. But yeah, that's my list. I hope you guys enjoyed this. A bit of a unique video, not what I always do, but every now and then I like to mix it up. I like to have fun and make some different videos. So I hope you enjoyed it. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.